evening everyone, it's Christine here again, and I thought I would pop on and give you an update on my second piece for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery, Down the Garden Path. So on screen, hopefully you can see the finished dried product of my brick wall using this woven fabric. So in the previous video we used watercolour paints to paint red and browny and greeny splotches on this. Post the video I also just put on some little bronzy reddy splotches from those metallic watercolour paints that I had as well, just to add a little bit of extra je ne sais quoi, as the French would say. Probably they'd say it a lot better than I say it. So I'm really happy with how this has turned out. When we were painting, you probably saw that it looked quite bright on the video, but now it's a really lovely muted tone. So I've left the middle section unpainted because that's where the door's going to go, so that didn't need paint on it. And then I've just cut my piece down to the size that I'm going to want it to match up with the size of my scroll. I don't think I can call this a snippet roll because it's, yeah, far bigger than a snippet roll. And I've just left the fringing on the side because I don't mind a few bits being a bit further out with some additional side elements on it. So that's how that piece has ended up. Then I, off camera, did some further painting, and I did this last night, of the lace piece. So that was just a reminder. I had white lace, or it was slightly off-whitey, I guess, vintage piece of lace, and I have painted it. Now you probably think these greens look super bright, and they are pretty bright, I'll definitely give you that. But I'm thinking they will mute down because I'm planning to do a whole lot of French knots and other stitches over them to make them my little trees in front of the door and in front of the metallic lace work on the buildings. So that's the effect that I've wanted to create by painting this, that metallic silver. It doesn't have really too much, when you look at it, it's got like a little bit of, yeah, sort of sheen to it, but it's got that nice, I guess, variation in the intensity of the greys because it's watercolour. So it does kind of look like it's a more sort of faded, it's not a brand new piece of metal work. And then I've got my little door which I've cut out. So I just cut myself, what I did, if I can find my piece of cardboard, which I can't. What I did was I just put a piece of cardboard underneath here. So let's just grab something and pretend it's a piece of cardboard. Let's do that here. Let's just grab one off my notepad here. So what I did was I put a piece of card under, and then I used my pacer pencil and I just drew where I wanted the door to actually go. So I wanted it to follow these lines. I want it to sit within here. So I followed it around broadly where I want it to be sitting, and just pacer pencil. I just used an old piece of shopping bag, but you can just use paper like this as well. And then when you take it off, you've got, hopefully you can see that it looks a little bit not that dark. You've got your shape that you can then draw around, and then you can, and I won't use my very good fabric scissors for cutting paper, and then I basically just stitched up, not stitched up, cut up, round the shape. That. And then I put that against my fabric and cut around the outside of it. Now I left myself a little bit of extra, probably about maybe just a bit under a centimetre, I reckon, when I was cutting around it. And what I then did was just pinned in that extra little area down the sides, and then at the top of it, what you want to do is when you're going around a corner as you want to be up the top and getting that sort of curved effect, I put little slits in so that I can fold it in and sort of overlap itself. If you didn't put those slits in, you wouldn't be able to get that going around the corner. So this is an alternative to doing needle turn applique, because with needle turn applique, you're actually turning it under as you stitch it. I'm going to stitch it off the piece, so when it's just separate like this, and then I'm going to sew it onto the piece, partially because I want to get it in exactly the right position so that it does actually look like a door in perfect alignment, or pretty good alignment, with the lacework features around it. So I'm going to want to pretty well position it so that it sits exactly where I want it to be. And it will be a bit down because I'm thinking I'll have my metalwork sitting. I'll pull it a smidgy more down. So it's a bit more down there. So I'm thinking the piece will look something like this, although actually probably a smidge more down for both of them, I think, yeah. I think I wanted it kind of like that. Oops, and if I don't pull the fabric, that would be good. And then we'll have it either turning over, or I'll put my other bit of fabric, which will be the piece below it, which will be the foreground where I'm planning to put my robin. But I got a bit of a clue from Sarah's video that we might have a bird in a future prompt, so I'm wondering whether I need to leave the stitching of the robin until a latter prompt, so I'll have a think about that. But something like that with, in fact I just realised you can't really see that, but essentially having a piece that would then sit below it. So that's the broad plan for how I'm going to lay it out. So once the door's ready to be stitched down, I will then sit it underneath the fabric. I'll then probably put some stitches in just to hold my lattice work in the place where I want it. And then I'll proceed to, stitch the door fully down and then stitch the lattice work fully down. And for now, I'll probably just leave the extra bits hanging off the edge. Ultimately, I'll probably trim them down, so I won't be putting any stitches where I've got the fringing down the side, and I also won't put any stitches below where the line of the bottom of the woven fabric is. And with the door, I'm planning to turn that over so that it does just sit at the bottom of the fabric. So that's the plan there. What I'm doing for my little keyhole, and we'd spoken last time that I'm planning to have an actual key from my grandpa's old collection of keys in the foreground with the robin, and so I want a little keyhole in the door. So what I'm doing here is I've just done some outline stitches around, and then I'm just using this pearl cotton from Anchor to do some satin stitches in the middle, which are basically just up and down stitches, and then in here I'm also just outlined the top circle. And so I'll just show you with a sateen, and I just need to get rid of the thread that I was using to stitch around the outside. Might just get that out of the way. Hopefully you can see that. Yep. So with a sateen stitch, you pop up, for example, near this edge where the border is, and then you just do a stitch down to where the other border is going down, if that makes sense. So it's a long stitch down, and then I pop up next to where I've come down, but not in the same hole because you want it to obviously hold. So I'm going to pop up next to it, and then I'll go up to the top where the border is. And then I'll do another one, popping where I was, so I'm at the top, so I want to pop up next to that stitch at the top. And then pop down to the bottom. And that way you don't put as much pressure on the fabric in the sense of having it sort of pull and pucker by doing it that way. Hopefully I'm in focus. So I hope you've all had a lovely day. We took the opportunity of the nice weather in Melbourne. It wasn't too hot, it was just perfect sunny sunny weather and headed up into the Dandenongs, which is quite close to where we are. We're very lucky, just a 25 minute drive, and we're there. I mean, within about 5 minutes we're passing through paddocks with cows and animals and trees and all sorts of nice things, and yeah, pretty soon into the Dandenongs with the ferns and the more sort of lush rainforesty feel to it. And so we went to Alfred Nicholas Gardens, that used to be part of the Burnham Beaches estate, owned by Alfred Nicholas, and I think possibly by his brother as well. So they were famous for aspirin here in Victoria, pharmaceuticals, but they were also quite, they did a lot of donating to charities and things. And so there's a historic house there that's all unoccupied. I think it's been used for some art exhibitions, but then just the most beautiful cascading gardens with just gorgeously established trees, and the hydrangeas were just out in full colour, just colours of hydrangeas I've not actually seen before. And then the gardens lead down to a pond of water down the bottom with a little lake house, I guess, on it, that reflects in the water. It's just really lovely. So I was a bit busy talking then and wasn't actually stitching. So as you can see, with those stitches, we've filled in the full area of that. I'm just going to put a few more in just to follow around the outside shape and just make sure all the stitches are holding nice and sort of tight against the fabric. And I might do that on the bottom section as well, just to make sure they all hold down. I'm just popping up and then putting the stitches over. The black thread means that it's sort of not going to be apparent what direction you're stitching in. I'm just going to put another one across there. So that's the little keyhole, so I can finish that off on the back. Put it up and tie a knot. Do a second one. And then I'll just show you how I am stitching down the door. It's got this thread here. Oops, I need to just snip that end off, get it a bit easier to thread. So I'm starting to see lots of lovely work on this prompt. So thank you to my fellow video makers for sharing your videos, and also lovely work in the Facebook group. If you're contemplating joining this project, which anyone's free to join, yeah, check out the Facebook group for Roxy's Journal of Stitchery. Lots of wonderful inspiration there. So yeah, this is just a very simple stitching over the edge. I can probably take that needle out and just hold it down, not that needle, that pin out, and just hold it down. And so I'm just catching the front of the fabric, but just doing it very narrow, so just catching a tiny bit on the front, but then making sure on the back that it's holding it down. So I'm just popping down, I'll pop down along here and just put a tiny little stitch in the front. So as you can see on the front, there's just the tiniest little spot that it's popping the thread out. And as you can see down here, you can't even see where the little threads popped out. So longer stitches on the back, and then just shorter little tacking stitches on the front. So this will just hold this cut edge of the fabric in place, and hold the door where you want the bends to be in the fabric. So I'll just keep doing that all the way around, and then after that I'll get this pinned in position with this on top of it. And then at that point, once I've got it exactly where I want it to be, put pins in, and then I'll just put some stitches around to hold all of it in place, and then I'll fully stitch down the door and fully stitch down the background. And then at that point, I reckon I will come back with some ideas of how I'm going to fill in these trees, and then I think we'll do some fun work to create some vines and leaves and all sorts of things coming up here. Oh, excuse me. I'm thinking these little areas here can have possibly some cascading flowers maybe out of them, or some other vines and other bits coming out of them as well. So that is how my piece is looking so far. I can bring you down for a bit of a closer look if you like. Oh no, that's probably as close as I can go without cutting you off from the piece. So I will see you soon with another update. I'm not sure if it will be in this video or it might be in the next video if I decide it's easier just to get this one uploaded for now. So take care everyone, and thanks again for watching. See you.